the man from the middle of nowhere has found his way onto the podcast. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad. Going well.
Going well. I mean, that's good considering everything that's going on and whatnot. I keep mentioning it every podcast because I feel like it gets worse and worse every podcast I do. It's like 460 cases or something today.
Yeah, it's not looking good, but, you know, being out in the sticks, there's not really too much worry of it down here. But, you know, as it spreads, more and more cases pop up around the place.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you're like right in between Melbourne and Adelaide or something, aren't you? Like, isn't it like 50-50 split?
Not really. I'm 9 hours away from Adelaide and then 3 hours away from Melbourne.
Okay.
So, yeah, not really in civilization as much.
I'm surprised you actually. Do you get decent internet out there in the sticks?
I mean, it's decent. It's NBN, but I'm on 25 and 5, so I can barely stream, but it's doable.
You can play and you can download Steam and whatnot, so that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm glad, and look, honestly, considering everything, being out in the sticks right now in 2020 is a massive, massive blessing. Have you always been like country or...
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep, same town that I was born in the same town, still living here now, so very much a big fan of the country compared to the city.
There's a few guys on your team that, or at least in the teams that you've played on, that have had long trips from their hometowns. Like, not everyone typically is like, I don't know, dropping back like to Melbourne and then a 20-minute drive home or whatever. For you and a couple others in your team, I know Crit takes like the bus or something as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, Crit buses to Perth and then has to fly from Perth to Sydney or Melbourne generally, so before he can take like international flights.
Yeah. Even for Europe, I would imagine, is Perth better for that?
I think he still has to go to Melbourne or Sydney for like a lot of the international stuff.
I don't know. I've never been to Perth, actually. It's one of the few states. One of the few states I haven't been to yet. There's not generally a whole lot of esports over there, but let's get into this. So, shall we? Super happy to have you on. I've been trying to get you on for a while, but you had to, of course, have a haircut and a shave. You've done that. You're looking good.
Yeah, I was looking a bit scruffy before.
We all do during these times, and I think you explained it perfectly. You were like, to go and get a haircut, it's like an hour-and-a-half drive or something.
Yeah, the barber's an hour away, so 2-hour round trip.
That's definitely one of the downsides of living out in the sticks. How'd you get into the esports scene and competitive gaming? Where did it all begin for you, Edge?
So probably, I think my first experience with competitive games was Call of Duty 4. I built my own computer back when I was 16. My first game was COD 4, and pretty much from there I just fell in love. I played it for maybe a year or two before I started to push into competitive COD. But it just took up my entire time, and I spent years playing Call of Duty competitively on PC.
At least, well, PC for COD is a different feel to console, isn't it? Like, console's typically more, in a really weird way, it is typically more esport orientated on console.
Yeah, so for Call of Duty, the main esport was through console. PC basically had no support at all. But what PC did have over console was mod tools, and they used mod tools to make better versions of the game. So we didn't have like all the perks and all the other things that made Call of Duty less enjoyable. We took that out and we had like a clean sort of competitive game for the most part.
Did you ever play it on console first, or was like PC only?
Yeah, I was PC through and through. The only games I'd really played on console were Need for Speed and other like racing and just story games.
Like many, you know, I played a lot of COD growing up on console. I didn't actually start with COD 4. I started with World at War, ironically, which then I think Modern Warfare 2 came out after that. So then that was my big one, was Modern Warfare 2. But how big did you get competitively in the COD scene?
So I got to at one stage probably a top 3 team through COD 4, and this was a long time ago, back when I first met
Top 3 in Australia.
Champs. Top 3 in Australia, I'd say. Yeah, definitely. Probably pushing to be the top 2, top 1 at certain times. Back when I originally met Champs, so we go way back there. We played Black Ops together, where we were the #1 team in Australia for basically the entire lifespan of Black Ops. Played World at War, everything.
And so you guys competed on the same team all the way to PUBG?
Pretty much. We had stints where we'd go on and off. So we went, basically, we played COD together. In Black Ops, I started on the team with Champs, but he got put to like a sub position because his internet was terrible at the time. And so I came into his Black Ops team and replaced him there. But yeah, we'd gone through teams. I'd played CS in between. We'd played Overwatch together. I played CS for a couple of years at like a Div 2 sort of level, but yeah, never really breaking through there.
So when you got into PUBG, was it purely for fun, or from the get-go were you trying to get into it competitively?
No, just from the start it was purely fun. I'd been playing, I think we'd had a real dead time because it's when basically everyone quit Overwatch. We were all playing Arma 3, like Epoch mod and everything. And then at some stage I watched a Summit 1G stream and saw him playing PUBG, and I messaged all the boys and I was like, look, this looks like our next game. This looks fun. So we all got early access or closed beta for it, and we all jumped on and we just got addicted instantly.
Like many, and of course it was extremely popular. And in terms of just modern gaming, it was one of the first cases of real massive popularity, just randomly out of nowhere, right? And then after it was Fortnite, and then other games have had glimpses of that. Nothing to the likes of Fortnite, and maybe even nothing to the likes of what PUBG had. Did you realize you were pretty good at it though? Obviously coming from a competitive background of Call of Duty, not the exact same game, and at the beginning it was TPP as well. So when you were playing it, did you think this could go somewhere? Or I guess the question should be, when did you think this could go somewhere competitively?
I think from probably the first season of when they had their original ranked leaderboards. Like we used to have our set squad that we used to play with every night, and there was always other squads. Like from the beginning was Zoid with his squad. There was Crit with his, and a couple of other squads out there. But like, I wouldn't say I knew it was going to go competitive in third person, because basically when we were playing third person at that stage competitively, there was so many issues. It wasn't very enjoyable, and the settings and everything needed a lot of work to be fine-tuned.
I remember when I was playing it, I didn't think it would go competitive at all, and then here we are. But of course, they came out with first person. They tweaked it, and very clearly they wanted it to go competitively. If I recall, the very first tournament ever was the PUBG OCE League. which I was either a part of that or a part of the second one. I can't remember too much. I wasn't the best of friends with Koth. Not Koth, fucking Koth. Close
Koth.
enough.
I don't think many were good friends with Koth.
Yeah. So, did you play in that? If you did, what was the team?
So we played in 1 and 2. So our team was called Smashbox Syndicate, and I think we came second or third in the first one, and then second in the second one. So, and that was myself, Champs, Dozy, Blood, and Nutshot at the time. So Nutshot played more of season 2 instead of Blood back then, I believe.
Yeah, and it was about after season 2 when things started to pick up. You had ESU League, Osm started to come in, for instance. When did you then join Chiefs and get that roster put together? Around what would have been, I guess, end of 2017. So
I think around the time that ESU leagues and everything started popping up, Champs and I actually joined Mind Freak as a duo. A lot of orgs internationally had started to look into PUBG a lot heavier. So we teamed up with Mind Freak there.
Did you have prior connections with Mind Freak?
Yeah, so I knew Champs and I both knew Riggs, who was the owner at the time, because he ran Mind Freak in Call of Duty, and they were one of the top competing teams as well. And so we hit them up and we joined up for basically no loss for either party and just gain in those terms. But then we played for a while just as a duo, and then we sort of realized we needed to find a team, and that's when we hit up Crit. We'd seen Crit throughout ranked leaderboards everywhere, and he said he'd only sort of come on board if we brought Potato as well. So, but as soon as we sort of made that team, everything just meshed, and it was a while later before we even looked towards going towards Chiefs.
So you played as that core for a while, a couple of months or whatever, and then so were you under the Mind Freak banner as a 4, or was it just the 2?
Yeah, so we're under the Mind Freak banner as a 4.
Yeah.
We started as just the duo, and then we picked up Crit and Potato to make the full squad, because we believed that squads was the future of PUBG.
Yeah. Well, of course, that was always going to be the case. And then, of course, you spent time as a core 4 on Mind Freak. How did you then go about leaving Mind Freak and joining Chiefs?
So originally, we were just purely looking for international representation. So there was a lot of invite-only events coming up, and we basically sort of put ourselves in that position to be the best, if not one of the best teams at the time for PUBG. Like, we're incredibly strong in OCE. So we were trying to see if there was any interest internationally, and we didn't really have many bites back, as teams didn't want to sort of commit to an international team at the time. And we had interest from Chiefs, so we sent in our resume, and yeah, it went really well, and we were able to secure that for a year contract.
Did the resume include experiences from other titles? Because Crit came from other games as well beforehand. So, because it's not like there would have been much that you could have had on the PUBG side of things, right? It would have just been like, we played PUBG ESC, and a few ESU leagues, and that's about it.
Yeah. So it was mainly like a lot of our past experiences, and because myself and Champs and Crit had all had a lot of extensive experience at LANs, like we'd all been landing for at least 5 years plus, with all multiple wins, actually making money out of LANs back then. And yeah, so it was mainly from previous games, but we did have a couple of PUBG ones there, but I don't think they were really as recognized for what we could possibly do in the future.
So you joined Chiefs, you miss out on pretty much every invite. During the invite era, you know, went to Atletico, Tainted Minds, and then that was really about it. And maybe a couple of B tier ones here or there, but for the most part, the invite era stopped around the time of PGI. And then, of course, well, PGI happened, right? So talk us through the expectations going into that event, of course, which I don't know if I'd say changed your life or anything, but would have been a very, very good time for you.
So the expectations going into the PGI qualifiers, we knew we were a strong team. Like, we were sort of sitting up there. We were inconsistent online, I'll put it that way. So we knew we were good. We knew how to play the game and everything. But I think for myself, for Crit, for Champs, it was LAN has always been the be all and end all in esports. So we knew that we were always good on LAN. We were confident on LAN. You know, everyone's got 0 ping. So going into that LAN, we were incredibly confident, and we just knew everything we needed to do and how to get it done for LAN. It's just everyone's on a level playing field. Ping doesn't take any effect. It's just clean. You
say that, and I don't want to go too much into it, but Zemo, of course, had been prior to that. You guys were expected to do well at Zemo, in no disrespect, but I think you were either the worst OCE team or the second worst OCE team. It was a bit of a horror.
Worst.
I think it was the second. I think Tainted Minds finished below you, or
yeah, something.
Regardless,
like that.
It definitely wasn't a tournament that you guys performed well at. Just what went wrong there, just quickly before we dive further into PGI?
So for Zemo, it was first of all, we didn't qualify. Second of all, it was third person, and our team was one of the teams that completely disliked third person. We petitioned against it very heavily when everyone else wanted to keep PUBG third person. So we had sort of fully committed to not playing third person at all. And that LAN, we got the invite like a couple of days before. We had no preparation going in. We just went for a time to catch up with everyone in the community, have a good time, play some games. You know, we do well. If we don't, who cares? So it was all just a good time for us, really.
Yeah, and that really gives the explanation behind that event for you guys. And besides that one event, you guys have been known to be LAN animals for a reason. PGI comes around, you get off to a pretty good start, while others around you sort of faltered, especially the likes of Greyhound, who were probably going into that event considered the favorites to take the top spot, which was the only spot for a shot at PGI Berlin. But you guys coming into it, as you said, you have the LAN experience, the expectations to do well on LAN. That first day really would have backed up those expectations. A pretty good start. You, I think, finished day one on top and never relinquished it.
Yeah. So I think we had something like, did we start the day in like 3 wins or something? We had a couple of wins chained together throughout the first day, and we just had a really big point lead that we couldn't really throw away to a point. But yeah, we were very confident, definitely going into the second day.
And the second day, kind of all it did was just solidify it even more. We see sometimes during tournaments where a team might get off to a really good start, slow down a little bit, and then teams kind of catch up, but that wasn't the case. I mean, it was over. As much as I wanted a close finish, it was never going to happen. That last day was basically just for fun, and I'd imagine that last day for you guys probably still just making sure you get the job done. But did you feel at ease in that last day where it was like, hey, we've got such a big lead here?
I think to a point that it was kind of stressful, knowing that we had to keep the teams like back. I think towards the later games, teams like AUNZ at the stage and icoNDks were really pushing back. Like, they'd had a really rough first day, and the second day they were coming back. But Yeah, I think it was still to the point of where we'd cemented that, basically that win from the first day, so we didn't have to stress about it too heavily.
Yeah, it was. You did all of the heavy lifting on day one, and then after day one, it was just walking the rest in, really. But winning that, was that your career highlight at that point in time? Was that, compared to all of the COD stuff you'd done, you've now qualified for something that's going to send you to an international tournament?
Yep, yeah, definitely. Like that there, for prize money wise, that was the most prize money probably throughout my entire career that I'd won. And then yeah, the first international event that I'd ever had the potential of attending. So it was 100% the biggest highlight in my esports career.
Going to PGI Berlin, you knew that there was going to be TPP along with the FPP. Was, as you put it, when you guys really didn't like the third person aspect at all, did you put any semblance of play into it, or was it just like, we're going to hard focus FPP?
Yeah, we went in there. We didn't put any practice in. We couldn't practice in OCE. No one was playing third person at this time. Everything was pure first person, so there was no point even.
I think it might have been the last
person.
tournament that even like PUBG ran that actually featured TPP.
Yep. Yeah, that's 100% right. Because even our qualifiers were purely first person, which is weird in itself that you have a qualifier in first person and the other one's 50-50. It just makes zero sense. But that's PUBG for you.
Over the years, you get used to these sort of things, but
yeah.
it's still it would have been an amazing experience, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Berlin was absolutely amazing. It was probably the most enjoyable place that I've been to. Like the whole country, the food, the experience was amazing.
Not the flight though.
The flight was absolutely terrible. I'd never want to do that again, but
yeah.
never.
But I had Juxi on the last episode, and I was mentioning the flight times with him and how unbearable that the Europe flights would be. I've yet to do it, but I'm sure it'll come one day. But just playing those games and playing against those teams, was it an eye-opener for you to see how far back the OCE region really was? Like, you're the team that just came first and dominated at the OCE LAN, and then you go over there and, while you ended up finishing 10th, well, I think it was like 10th overall, right? Like the way that they did it all combined, it was like 10th overall, which is not bad and actually pretty good. I think you would have probably taken top 10, but you realize you were a little bit out of your depth a bit going into that level of tournament?
Not really. I think we went in there pretty confident with our play. We definitely felt, having, like, by the way, this was 20 teams. So having 20 top teams all competing, it was a bit like a lot different to OCE. But when it came to it, we didn't feel outskilled or out-strategized or anything like that. We just made mistakes that we hadn't made before, time and time again, where realistically we only had ourselves to blame. We had a little bit of internal conflict during the event, but other than that, I feel like if we sort of didn't make those mistakes and didn't have the conflict and came out confident after third person, I think we could have had a much better event. But you can't change the past.
Were these major conflicts? Like,
not really. It was more a confidence level from an IGL standpoint. Like, at the time, Champs was IGLing, and we just had too many people questioning his decision making, and it put doubt into his mind and put doubt into our team's mind, and we just ended up making the wrong calls when the original calls made probably would have worked perfectly. So it was just small things that slowly escalated.
To be fair though, it was also your first time at that level of an event. So you kind of, I guess, can expect those things to happen, because not everything's going to be smooth sailing like it is in OCE. You're going to have some issues. You're also going up against different teams with different play styles. So for someone like Champs, who's doing the IGLing, he's going to have to IGL probably differently than he would for OCE.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're playing with a lot less space internationally, because teams know how to take up their space and how to really just sort of just flex their different play styles on you, because we had our way of playing, they had their way. Both can sort of coexist, but we just didn't give ourselves the potential chances to show it.
Still would have been a happy event as you guys are coming home. What did you take out of that event that you wanted to bring back to OCE to solidify yourselves as a team that can continue to make those sort of events?
So at the time, after the event, there was a lot of talk between, like, about roster changes, about what we wanted to do, because at the time we didn't feel that the Champs was up to snuff in IGLing, so we wanted to try something else there. But then we sort of I don't know, it was a weird situation to be in, that you're sort of thinking about IGLing in the back of your mind. And so we came back and we tried different IGLs. Like, we tried Potato for a little bit, and then when Potato wasn't really liking it, then I went to IGLing for a while, and I think went back to Champs. So it was a confusing time, and we didn't really understand fully how to manage it.
The rest of 2018, not much really happened. There wasn't anything else that was major going on. So you guys would have just sort of floated around for a bit until the start of 2019, which is around the time that you guys as a team departed Chiefs.
So myself and Champs got dropped from the roster at this time. So Crit and Potato wanted to make their own team, where they picked up Tig was originally a sub for us. So
he was
Tig
underage.
came in. Sorry?
Was he? But he was underage though, wasn't he?
I think he may have just turned 18 or be turning 18 or something like that. So they made the roster with Tig, okay, and with Nonreg. They picked up Tig and Nonreg for the core. So then I started looking for another team, where I sort of bounced around for a little bit, playing a little bit with Vasily and Chungy and Charl. And then was the time when that Chiefs roster with Crit and Potato sort of failed. So then Crit and I looked to make a roster after Potato retired. That's when we made Vendetta.
Was it hard being dropped by presumably Crit?
Not really, actually. I think in the back of my mind, I wanted to leave. I wanted something new. I wanted something different. I wanted to make a potentially better team. But yeah, I never really had any. I never really minded at all. But honestly,
so you thought it was. You thought it was. I don't know if I say the right decision, but you kind of saw some sense to it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it had always been in the back of my mind that, was I still enjoying playing on this team? Did I think this team was going anywhere, etc.? Like, I think it was the best move from both parties at that time. I don't think I was really enjoying my time there too much. It was just another day. Just wasn't feeling it.
Needed to shake things up a little bit, and basically that's what happened. And it was also around this time that some of the organizations that were supporting teams in PUBG were making their way out of PUBG, which was around this sort of early 2019 point. So it wasn't a surprise then, obviously, for Chiefs to eventually just be like, okay, whatever. I knew from my knowledge they had no care to pick anyone else up. It was just always going to be, I think, crit related, or like you guys as a team related? Like, if you guys need a team, we're here. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything, right?
Yeah, so I know around that time, no one wanted to be in Chiefs anymore. So when Champs and I were dropped, they
But you
stayed with
didn't
Chiefs
want
for a
to
little bit longer.
play for the organization.
No, I think everyone on the team had sort of had enough of being in an organization, and we just wanted to do our own thing for a while. Yeah.
Did they not? They probably would have just been like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, we gave them really after PGI, they sort of got nothing out of us. We got nothing out of them. Like, basically all we'd ever got from Chiefs was just the Logitech sponsorship, but other than that, it was, yeah, no one really had anything to gain at that point.
Right. No, that's fair enough. I don't know. I think at the time I didn't really see it that way from a public standpoint. I don't know if you guys came out and made that aware publicly. It was sort of very, very much mutual, if not even leaning more so towards you guys. Whereas sometimes you just see the tweet, and the tweet comes from the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are like, we say farewell to our PUBG team, blah, blah, blah. And it just almost looks like they're just dropping you. But obviously there's more to it. So
yeah,
that's interesting. And then you flounder around a bit, as you said, play with a few different teams. When does the idea of Vendetta come into the fray?
So I think I can't remember what it might have been, I don't remember the qualifiers exactly, but Crit, Potato Champs, and
this would have been for
Nonreg.
phase 2, I'm pretty certain. You guys didn't play phase 1, did you?
Yeah, it would have been phase 1. They failed to qualify, so they disbanded. And then phase 2, I was talking to Crit about potentially making a roster, and so that's where Crit wanted to play with Nonreg, so we needed a fourth player. And yeah, we were shopping. Well, not really shopping around. We were very late to the party, building a team, and so I had asked a couple of people about Icon, who's from Singapore. He was looking for a team in OCE, asking about him, and people saying that he's very, very good player, but he's a little bit shy. English isn't the greatest. So pretty much with a day or two before the qualifiers, we picked up Icon and Nonreg and formed Vendetta.
Yep. I can't remember too much about your performance at phase 2. I think if I recall correctly, I think you guys were challenging around the start and then dropped off towards the end, or it was either vice versa?
I think it was the other way around. I think we started off in the bottom half, and then I think we finished in the top 6 of phase 2.
You made that comeback, yeah.
Yeah, and I think phase 2 was pretty much purely online.
Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, it was all online, which our online results have always been hit or miss.
Inconsistent, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you had have just taken the second half of phase 2, I think you guys would have been something like top 3.
Yeah, there wasn't many points from it. I think if we had have started that phase 2 better, we definitely would have knocked out Hell Yeah Brother from like that 3rd position quite easily, I believe.
Certainly set sort of the tone, I guess, then for going into phase 3. But did the results from that phase 2 performance give you hope for the remainder of 2019? Considering that obviously with phase 2 come and gone and only one more phase guaranteed for the year, you probably weren't looking to want to change things again. You probably wanted to get some consistency into that roster and be like, okay, well, if we start better, we can probably qualify.
Yeah, like, we were really happy with the roster at this point. Like, I was IGLing at this point, and I had Nonreg and Crit who were giving me like really good information into the game. So after that phase, we were like incredibly confident that we could push for that top 3 position easily, and potentially put it up to their top 1. We never really had any issues, or anything that we wanted to change, because the roster was working well. Just we started really late, going forward.
Was there a lot less voices on this roster compared to the original Chiefs roster? Like when you were obviously now I'm gelling on Vendetta here, you know, when you were mentioning before all of the people who wanted to have input, Crit wasn't one of the people that you mentioned. Nonreg, you know, is relatively quiet, and an icon doesn't even really speak much English. Was it very much just you getting to IGL without people questioning?
No, I think more to the point of Nonreg has very good information that he adds to the game. So he's constantly looking around and constantly scouting everything. So whenever we'd move to like a free compound or something like that, that was always him sort of giving us that outlook while everyone's looking around. He's always the one that's just like giving the perfect information there. Crit's always put in a lot of information, whether it's good or bad. And yeah, Icon was just a fragger at that point.
yeah. That he certainly was. And then the thing is, though, for you guys as a team, you would have been looking at the fact that Atletico and icoNDks just keep getting the top 2 spots, and having to then think about phase 3 being 2 slots only. Was that a concern for you guys? And this was, of course, before the icoNDks breakup. Was that a concern, or did you truly think we can knock one of those 2 out of the top 2?
Well, I think at that point, I don't think anyone really well, from our point of view, we didn't consider that Atletico and icoNDks were really that outstanding. I think at this point in time, our region was incredibly weak, with the teams that were competing sort of on the lower scale. So it was kind of just free farming for them. So we sort of, we definitely knew that it would have been a lot easier for us to pop them from the top spot at that point.
And then, of course, Atletico do very well at GLL. Luke 12 gets poached. icoNDks split up. All of a sudden, this phase
becomes
2
even easier.
Yeah, this phase 2 off season opens right up for you guys, and I'd imagine you would have noticed that very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. Like Atletico definitely weren't the team that they were before. As good as Jukesy is, I don't think he had any sort of room to shine in that roster. And the leftovers of Incog going to shift whatever else.
Insight to immunity.
Yeah. They were nowhere near the prime that they used to be. They just the rosters didn't make sense from personalities wise, I believe.
So once again, it comes to LAN, like it did all the way back at PGI, and just like that PGI LAN, everyone else kind of fell over each other while you guys just did what you do on LAN. You LAN animals. Going into this particular LAN though, for phase 3, even in my opinion, well, definitely more on the line compared to PGI, because PGC was going to be a much more real event, PUBG competitively, in terms of world championship compared to PGI. You come in, you are considered one of the favorites to be able to qualify, but not the outright favorite. Was that fair, or did you feel like as the casters maybe just weren't seeing the room as you guys did?
I definitely think so. I think, you look at it from an outsider's perspective, and obviously we as a team, we didn't practice. We just showed up to official games.
You guys made that very clear that you didn't scrim.
Yeah. At that point, there was no point in scrimming. Like, all you gain from scrimming is bad habits. So we had the mechanics. We all played the game. we were all very good at the game, and then all you need is an IGL and a group of players who understand what you need to do to make it further. And I mean, we knew all this. Everyone else has no idea because they don't understand what we understand. And yeah, that's definitely why we got sort of probably not the recognition that we would have deserved.
But I'd say that's, though, again, from an outsider's perspective, if you've got a team running around saying we don't scrim, a team that has been inconsistent for the better half of a year, the fact that you guys are ridiculously good on LAN gives you that recognition coming into where it's like, okay, they definitely are a team that can make top 2. But from my perspective, I don't think I could have sat there and be like, you guys are the favorites.
Oh, no, I don't expect anyone to think that we're the favourites. I don't think anyone
To be fair, I don't think there really was much of a favourite going into that LAN in particular. I mean, Atletico to a degree were
everyone
considered very strongly to qualify.
Yeah, Atletico is sort of like the player's choice. But like from a outsider's standpoint, we were definitely considered a weaker team, just because people don't know much about us at that point.
Starting off how much of that LAN do you remember? Since it wasn't as long ago as PGI LAN.
I mean, 10 games a day. I don't remember any of it. By the time that was all over, I had the biggest migraine and I just wanted to sleep. But no, I mean, I don't really remember too much of it. I just know we came out again to another sort of flying start. After the first day, we had a really good point lead, and we were able to sort of carry it back, even though Atletico got incredibly close to catching us at the end.
Yeah, I think from memory, very much it seemed like, at least by the halfway point, I don't have it in front of me and I'm too lazy to go and bring it up, but by about halfway point, I think you guys almost had top 2 wrapped up or thereabouts, and it was Atletico kind of in this pack of like 2, 3, 4. Can't remember the teams, and then they pulled away with like maybe 5 games to go, and then the last 5 games was just, there was no point even really playing them out from memory. There wasn't going to be much of a change, and we had our 2 teams, but that LAN in particular was very different to the PGI LAN, because the PGI LAN was 3 days. Of course, Phase 3 LAN for ESL AUNZ Champs was 2 days. Now, what did you think of the decision of having 10, was it 10 or 8 games a day?
It was 10 games a day.
Yeah. Now, I remember the conversations with Mikester, and I said, look, they definitely want more than what was, I think, the proposed 5 or 6 games a day. I think it was 6 games a day that was proposed. And I said, since we can't get the 3rd day, why don't we increase the games? And then everyone was like, yeah, 8 games. And then someone else was like, 10 games. What did you think of that? Were you prepared to be happy with that? Or were you like 6, 8, 10, doesn't matter?
I mean, I think you need more games, 100%. So I was happy with 10 games a day. Everyone plays this game a lot. So everyone has the potential to play it, but it is very draining to play 10 games of PUBG a day.
10 competitive games with a lot on the line of PUBG. This is not just fucking around in ranked for 8 hours,
Yeah, that's right. And I think, look, 10 games a day was the right decision for what we had. I think you could have gone 8 games a day and no one would have really complained. But for PUBG especially, you want to have more games to just solidify it. Having 6 games, 5 games a day, it doesn't sort of do any justice, because people can just go off onto a lead one day and be able to carry it 100% into the second day.
From memory, after 12 games, the top 2 was the same.
Yeah, it was. I know. I only know that on the second day, on the last game, we're coming down to points whether we got first or second. So we'd held our lead, but we'd sort of coasted to a point where Atletico had caught up a lot. And yeah, we needed to outplace them purely to win, and we managed that. Yeah, so we may have beat them by like 5 to 10 points or something like that.
Did you honestly care much about actively winning that tournament, or was it more so about just getting top 2?
I mean, I went into that tournament going for a, you know, just like a more social event, just catching up with everyone. And the team, I think everyone knew that we had the potential to win it. And then after that first day, we definitely knew we had the potential to win it. So, like, the whole sort of mentality changed on that second day, and probably made it a bit harder on ourselves in reality, because we came in pretty relaxed, and then the second day was a little bit more stressful.
You wouldn't have been able to sort of soak in that experience of the LAN as well, because you're changing your mindset a bit as you get more and more closer to that top spot.
Yeah, and we were alive the entire time, so in game, where
I can't remember it. I think it might have been Mishka, but the way that, of course, the LAN was set up, if you died early, you couldn't just get up and leave until your whole row had died. And I think you guys, were you sitting next to Mishka's team?
Yeah, so they were sitting next to us, and so we were alive right until the end every single game.
They were dead every game first.
And they were dead first every game, so they couldn't go out into the lounge until we died.
Yeah.
So they just got the unlucky end of the stick there.
They copped it bad.
Because most teams would get like a 10-15 minute break in between games if they died early, whereas we got maybe a 3-5 minute break where we'd go out, grab a water, go to the toilet, come straight back to the computer.
Yeah, and they were basically the same thing, except the difference was they were sitting there staring at their death screen for 15-20 minutes at a time. I can imagine. That would have been a horrible experience for them, but it was a good experience overall. It was a really, really good LAN. It's a shame it wasn't 3 days like the PGI one. Looking back at both of them, I enjoyed both of them, you know, for what they were, but the 3 days it is just that perfect amount of days versus the 2, which just feels like it was just so sped up. Everything was just going by so quickly. You didn't really have a chance to enjoy it as much as you would have liked. And especially looking back now with COVID and not being able to go to these LANs anymore.
Yeah.
It just feels like, fuck. But still a really good experience. And it was nice knowing, you know, what teams were going to join me to go to PGC. Who was I going to go see there over in America? And I was very happy to see you guys go over along with Atletico. So I was happy. PGC though was very much right around the corner for you guys. You basically went home, packed, and then just about left.
Yeah, I think, what did we have? 3 days in between?
It's like 4 or 5 days, I think, maybe for you guys.
Yeah.
And I had about a week.
Like yeah, so basically got on the flight back from Sydney back to Melbourne, then drive 3 hours home. And then...
Did Crit stay in Sydney, or was that something he was just thinking of doing?
So Crit did... I think he flew home and then flew back to Sydney potentially because he had the Red Bull event.
Red Bull.
Yeah, so he did the Red Bull event and went straight from Sydney to LA, I believe.
Yeah, he went straight after the Red Bull event. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, Nonreg, myself, Zoid, and Flood all flew out from Melbourne a couple of days later, straight to LA. So
you were on the same plane as those guys?
Yeah.
Sitting next to them and everything, so...
Yeah, I think myself, Reg, and Flood all sat next to each other. We all organised seats, and then Zoid was just somewhere by himself with a crying baby next to him.
That's what he gets for being by himself.
Yeah.
It makes the trip a little bit better, though, when you got people you can talk to and you're not by yourself. I was happy when I found out Mangy was on my flight and we organised our seats next to each other. That was so fucking good.
Yeah.
It
makes it a lot easier.
I had just done Nations Cup prior to that, and I had to fly all the way to Hong Kong by myself, and then from Hong Kong to Korea by myself, and it was like not fun. It wasn't the best experience. So this was really nice. Anyway, you guys get there, I think about 2-3 days before me, so you got there I think on the weekend or something. You set up and you've got the all the PCs and whatnot. Were you there at that point? Was it like, okay, we're here, game face on, or was it socials?
I mean, a lot of it was just like
because you're this weird team. You're probably the only team there that was coming into this with a very casual mindset, whereas everyone else is like, "Fuck yeah, we're gonna win PGC."
Well, I mean, yeah, to an extent. It was realistically, it was a free holiday. That wasn't so much a holiday, but yeah, it was a free experience. We did like just sort of hung out, team bonding. We really didn't get much chance to practice while we were there because of the way PUBG set everything up. It wasn't really very accommodating to making sure you're at your peak performance. But yeah, we came in with the mindset that we could do well, and we definitely could have. But yeah, it was just a good time, really.
It was a good time, and the only thing that sucks is that it was the location was literally at the airport. There's not too much around there. I'd been to America once prior to that, where I stayed previously in LA. I did Anaheim and Hollywood and everything. And the positioning of your hotel is very, very important. Unfortunately for this, there was nothing in walking distance. I don't know. Did you end up doing much sightseeing in the week off after qualifying for the semifinals?
No, because we really wanted to, like we'd made it through the semis as being the only OCE team. So we wanted to try and make sure that we were, playing our best. So we rocked up to all of our scheduled sort of practices, which didn't give us time to do anything in between. Because of the way it was laid out, you'd have a X amount of hour block, and then you had something potentially after, and just the scheduling was really weird, where we couldn't actually leave the hotel and go anywhere and come back in time because of how far everything was in LA traffic.
And then by the time you get back, it's nighttime.
Yeah, so it was like the sightseeing aspect was kind of non-existent. We did go down to Santa Monica to the PUBG offices one night and hung out with Hawkins and McClutch. Yep. So that was a good night out. But other than that, we didn't really get to do much other than go to the Denny's that was just around the corner.
Yeah, fucking Denny's. I was actually really happy. I made it to the office as well.
Yeah.
Ended up going with Avenger, Paper, Froz, and all of that. We went down there, Clutch and Hawkins. It was really very open office, like very big when you get in there. It was the kitchen area was like, oh, amazing. Did you end up seeing the kitchen area?
Yeah, I saw the kitchen area, all the snacks and drinks and everything there. It'd be nice.
That's the place to work. I'm telling you, that's
Definitely.
the fucking place to work. Yeah, I mean, I did a little bit of sightseeing in the not so much when I originally got there, and then obviously the weekend of casting for the group stage. It was after that. I know a lot of the guys went to Vegas. Some drove up and some flew up. I was like, I've been to Vegas. Once you've seen Vegas, you don't have to go back. I'm telling you right now, once you go once, that's it. There's nothing else there. You're just going to end up losing money or losing your car like Zoid. I went to like Santa Monica Beach. I had already done the Universal Studios, but I went again with, who did I go with? I think it was Froz and Avenger, I think. It was just us three.
Yep.
No, it wasn't. No, it was Poro and Froz. And with Poro and Froz.
Yep.
That was a fun day though, because we went on, it was like just a random Tuesday or Wednesday, middle of the day. Everything was empty, no lines, perfect.
Oh, wow.
The time I had gone before that was like Martin Luther King holidays, and it was fucking packed to the brim. Yep. So this was the best thing ever. So I was pretty happy. I got to see a little bit. I got to have all my Uber Eats with Chick-fil-A and whatnot. So I was enjoying my time, but very much would have been nicer if Atletico was still there and whatnot. But in the end, actually, considering, as you said, the schedule, they probably wouldn't have been able to come out anyway.
No, that's right.
What did you make of the group stage and them getting eliminated that early? Was that a surprise for you?
Not really. I think to that point, in my opinion, they'd always sort of struggled internationally without Luke. So I didn't feel like they had as clear direction on how they wanted to play the game, and they didn't play like themselves. And that was one of the things we made sure that we did. We just went and played our own game, and I think that was like their biggest downfall for Atletico. But you know, it's always hit and miss. You know, you can have a good event or you can have a rough event.
Were you guys there? I can't remember if you were there for the final day in the studios. Sometimes you guys rocked up.
Yep. Yeah, we went and watched all of the other groups' games.
How did you find the that final game? Watching them on Miramar.
It was tough. It was tough. I didn't feel like they were playing as a team. It was more just like 4 separate entities around the map, sort of thing. I don't know.
But you would have been sitting there rooting for them, being like, "Come on!"
Oh, 100%. Like,
and then heartbroken at the end as they missed out barely.
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing. Like, everyone there, like we were sitting with Mangy and everyone else up the back there, but like, you know, everyone was rooting for them. Everyone wanted them to do well. Like, there's no reason to hate on another team that's going over and giving it their all. So yeah, it was pretty disappointing from, I think, from everyone's point of view that they couldn't make it through.
But you guys made it through. You guys actually had a pretty decent group stage. In fact, you didn't even have to play in the little elimination bracket portion. You had in your own group, you guys did pretty well. Were you a little surprised by how easy it was to qualify to the semifinals?
Not really. We sort of came out. We played our own game. We did everything we'd normally do. We got ourselves like a lot of free real estate, really, and we're able to move off that. We could have done a lot better. Like, we threw away a win right at the end that we could have had. That would have been nice. But yeah, I think we could have, in the grand scheme, we could have done much better there in the group stages.
And then the semifinals come around the next weekend. What was the frame of mind going into that for you guys?
So I thought everything was going all well. And then we had some things outside of the game that potentially put some players in a bad sort of mind frame. And it was really like, we started off really average with like basically no points on the first day or something, and going into the second day we definitely could have done a lot better. But it was, from my perspective, it was so hard trying to get my players back into the right frame of mind. Like, no one was themselves. Everyone was upset and sort of tilted.
Are you able to disclose what happened, or was it a personal matter?
I think there was a couple of things that happened with the Divine team. So and this tilted the absolute hell out of, like, in realistically mainly crit, but like someone from PUBG.
Oh, I remember.
Had gone to, after our interviews that never got aired. We got asked a question that, like, who was like the weakest team or whatever, and basically I answered and said that I felt that the C region was the weakest region. And someone from PUBG Corp had gone to, or the interviewers or something, had gone to one of the Divine team, the Divine team, and had basically said that we thought they were a shit team. And so that had got back to us on Twitter, and just
you guys were copping
a
bit of flack on Twitter from the SEA region, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. And so, like, because of this one person, like, had just single-handedly like tilted majority of our team, and it had spread from one person to the next person to the next person, and it was just not a fun experience, and getting people out of that tilt was difficult in itself. And it took until like the last couple of games before I sort of got Nonreg out of it for a start, and then got crit back into it. But I don't think I ever really got icon back into the game after that.
Reckon it affected him more because it was his region?
I don't think so. I think at LAN, icon's whole persona had changed a little bit. That where he just wasn't sort of cooperating with the team towards the later stages of the event. Maybe he was a little bit homesick or something like that. I'm not entirely sure of everything that went down there.
It had been about 2 weeks as well. So for some, that can be enough time where it gets to that point where it's like, all right, I've had enough. I want to go home.
Yeah. Well, I was pretty sick of America at that point. Hadn't really been outside the hotel. The food was average.
Yeah. Well, you're not wrong.
No.
I guess you kind of get your wish though by not making it past the semi-finals. Things just didn't go your way. I think you finished second last.
Yeah, we didn't have.
It wasn't even close, basically.
Yeah, like I think to that point though, we were ahead of FaZe. I think going into that last game, that they like got a 14, 16, 17 kill win or something like that.
Yeah,
like that was the game that we needed to have at the end. And
I remember that, and I remember thinking as well, you know, everyone's saying FaZe Sunday. It's like, oh, Vendetta Sunday. It was strange that you finished second last, but realistically, you have a game like that and you make it. It's the points didn't quite line up with what you would have in your mind as a team that finished the second last. The points really weren't that far, but
no, like it was always within grasp. We just needed to have that. Not even a good second day, just a decent second day, and we could have made it all the way to the finals. But just it was just too much to bring everyone back.
Nothing was going your way really, and
it wasn't even an in-game thing. It was more of it was all mental out of game that sort of brought it down.
When you left PGC, it was pretty quick, wasn't it? Like it was
the next day.
The next day you had your flight. Like how did I never actually really asked, but like. From memory, I think they had it all like preset or something, right? So like when you would have got back to the hotel, they would have been like, "Here's your flight," and
so they already had everything pre-organized for like all of the flights, and they just if we qualified for the next stage, they just
move the dates.
They just moved the dates, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So that was pretty rough in itself. That you don't make it to the next stage of the LAN, and then the next morning you've got to fly back out, and so you're tilted sitting on the plane for however many hours. And
were you by yourself for the flight back?
I was with Nonreg on the flight back.
Right. That's all right. That's not too bad.
At least I had someone.
Yeah. I was on the flight back by myself. I slept most of it and watched Chernobyl, so I was pretty content. But a bit boring, to be honest.
Yeah. There's only so many movies you can watch on a plane.
Exactly right. You get back home. Did you watch the remaining part of PGC, the finals?
Yep. Yeah, I watched all of the rest of the games. Just chilled in Discord with.
Cheering on Luke and SDK? Or Lazarus at the time, I guess.
Yeah, they did pretty badly in the finals, right? Did they finish up?
They were doing average. They weren't doing average, bad. Yeah. They were just doing average.
Well, I mean, for STK standards, I'd say that's pretty badly.
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, no, it was an interesting finals between like FaZe, 4am and Gen G. It was pretty good finals actually, because of how close it was into the last game.
It was really good atmosphere. It was a really, really good event. Really good event. It would have been nice to have an OCE team there. Wasn't to be the case. So you guys have a bit of turmoil, I guess. PGC doesn't end the way you would have liked, because you can lose at an event like PGC and still come away happy. In this case, with everything that happened with Divine, was there talks of like, once again, sort of roster changes, 2020? What was the mindset?
So going into 2020, we had basically, between myself, Crit, and Nonreg, had decided that we wanted to play without icon after that point, and so we were going to be looking for a fourth. And then because of the late nature of when the qualifiers was announced for the next event, it was like Nonreg had a trip to Japan organized on those dates for qualifiers like a year in advance with like all of his friends and his girlfriend and everything. So basically we made the decision to drop Reg and start looking for 2 new players as well. And we trialed a lot. We were potentially going to pick up Insight and Flood, and then Insight fell through because he wanted to go back and play with his mates who are now Fury, and then Flood, as soon as Insight fell out, just wasn't in it at all, and Flood had potentially the chance to play with Sonics, who are now Sonics, but then that fell through, so he just went back to Athletico. So we needed to find new people, and basically Jumbi and Textile sort of popped up and played a couple of games with them, and everything like clicked really well. So we decided to take the plunge in playing with Textile and Jumbi.
I was a little bit surprised at that one, because I hadn't really ever seen you guys playing or sort of communicating with likes of Jumbi and Textile. Had you guys really spoken to them much prior to that?
No, I don't think I'd ever really spoken to Jumbi before. At PGC, I did have a chat with them, because
Textile was a bit more of an OG, but
yeah, I knew Textile. Like I'd played with different people that he'd played with before, so that wasn't too bad. But Jumbi I'd never sort of spoken to really before. All I knew about him was online, but when we were playing scrims and everything while we were trialing for new players, Jumbi was I was IGLing originally, and I was sort of stuck in my IGLing, and Jumbi stepped up being Bliss's IGL, and he killed it. So Crit and I spoke about it, and we're like, yeah, this is the route we want to take. So that's how it all sort of worked out.
So this was, of course, for the PGS Berlin qualifiers, which ended up
never happened.
Never really, going through. But you did technically play the OCE portion in what was a very short notice with a new team. I didn't think it was a horrible result for you guys, considering all the circumstances involved. Would you agree, or would you say you were a bit disappointed?
At the beginning, I think I was disappointed, but after that, had some sort of real life commitments pop up that I wouldn't have been able to go to Berlin anyway. But yeah, it was disappointing that we didn't make it, because the team had a lot of potential, but everything sort of slowed down a lot during the games. Like the calling just wasn't there, and it just didn't feel the same as the scrims. There wasn't the confidence that we had, before we were actually a team. So everything just slowed down a little bit.
Let's get to the hard-hitting portion, though, that I've been most eager to hear about. Maybe some out there as well. The qualifiers for the OCE qualifier, which you guys didn't actually even qualify for, from the group stage portion. What the hell went wrong there?
So let me remember.
This is, of course, for PCS1 for those who are unaware.
Right, yeah. So 19 teams, I believe it was, in our group. And the way our team works is we work a lot off. This obviously sounds like an excuse, but whatever. Our team works off information. So we will try and put ourselves in position to get any sort of free real estate and work off that and constantly center up and all of that. And what ended up happening with 19 teams is there was just nowhere to move. And by the time we sort of started to change up our game, it was too late, where we just weren't able to push ourselves into the later portions of games or anything like that. So it just went poorly from the get-go, really.
I think you can say it went absolutely fucking horrible. Like,
yeah,
because to me, at the time, and I was questioning it as potentially the worst result from a team in OCE region, because you guys didn't even qualify for the qualifiers. Like,
yeah,
you know,
it wasn't the best showing.
I honestly, and obviously now this again, I never said this on air or said this to anyone. This is just my own internal thoughts as I was watching this happen. Although, then very fortunately, taking a lot of the attention off you guys was then Bay's performance in the qualifiers. So
yeah, that was even worse, I reckon.
Was that I thought, is this team going to stay together after a result like that? Like, that was bad. Like,
yeah,
what was going on internally with this roster after an event like that, where you don't even get a shot, you don't even get a chance of qualifying for APAC? And quite honestly, I had you guys qualifying easily, and then I had you guys as a very, very likely candidate for that third spot, like maybe favorite even.
Yeah, I would have been the same. But when it came down to it, like, we'd only picked up Nonreg. So it started before that, actually, where we wanted to pick up Nonreg to replace Jumbi. So we wanted to drop Jumbi, and then Jumbi ended up leaving before any of that happened. So we wanted to pick up Nonreg, but we were told we wanted to trial as many players as we could to try and see if we were making the right decision with Nonreg. So we had to trial a couple of players first, and then we trialed Nonreg, and we're like, yeah, this is clearly the way we wanted to go. Reg hadn't played in however long since the original Vendetta disbanded, but everything seemed to work. And then, yeah, so he wasn't firing on all cylinders for the qualifiers. I don't think realistically I was as well, because I wasn't playing the game much. Crit was sort of a little bit tilted with the game. So yeah, it was just a lot of different things, but yeah, nothing seemed to go right for those qualifiers. But after the games, I think everyone was really pretty fine. We knew we had potential. We still know we've got potential, but it's just figuring it out.
It's a good attitude to have, because it could have really all just combusted. Everyone could have just started to throw the blame game and say, what the fuck was that? What, you know, in fairness, like, you guys were pretty close to making top 8, but also in fairness, you shouldn't really be in that sort of position. Like, the lobby that you guys were playing in, and yeah, okay, whatever, 19 teams. Despite the fact that if your play style revolves around it, it's still not the biggest excuse, in my opinion. That's just the way I look at it. I understand your point of view on it, but the teams that were in that lobby, not really anywhere close to your level. So when you look at it in that aspect, it's sort of like a lot of people would have been saying you guys should have just still farmed.
Yeah. Well, that's realistically how we should have gone about that lobby, is just gone out and, like, gone for kills, really, just breach buildings. We did have the more stacked of the two lobbies, having like Atletico or Astra, and
the top end was a little bit more.
We had
stacked.
A lot more higher end teams, but even still, it's not really an excuse for why we didn't qualify. We just we didn't adapt quick enough when we needed to, and we didn't take advantage of the weaker teams.
So moving forward now on to what is coming up very, very soon. I think I'm actually a couple days time with more notice and more games, I should add. So this is going to be a much better qualifier, but unfortunately only 2 slots actually make it to APAC. Fortunately, one of the top teams has elected to play, of course, Malaysia, Singapore. So Bay are gone. So that's at least one team less to kind of contend with, but of course you still got to make top 2 rather than top 3. Going into the actual qualifiers themselves, though, you guys have got to redeem yourselves. That's for certain. So the first goal is really to not have the same issue as last time, to not go out in the qualifiers for the final 16.
Yeah, well, that's the plan.
You say that's the plan, but have you at least taken and been like, as we were just saying, like, instead of having your usual play style, maybe considering from what I saw, I don't know, sign-ups or the sign-up numbers already looking a bit wonky in terms of what these lobby numbers are going to look like. If it's again going to be something like, I don't know, 17, 18, 19 teams, do you go in with a different mindset? Or if it's 16 teams, you say, right, we play our normal way?
So from the start, I'm not IGLing anymore for the team, so Nonreg has taken that on. After PGC, I wanted to drop IGLing altogether and have Nonreg IGL because he is incredibly observant and a very smart player. So I wanted to have him learn to IGL, so he's stepped into that role now. We do have a different play style coming in, but we still fall back onto what we used to do a lot. So we've got a lot more versatility now.
So it's a bit of a reinvigorated roster.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you've had a bit of time away from the spotlight. I'd be honest, for PGS Berlin, it was really quick, not many games, kind of finished middle of the pack. Obviously, PCS 1 didn't even really have any involvement. So going into PCS 2, I look at you guys and I think, man, we haven't seen much from this core 3 since PGC, 9 months ago or something.
Yeah. I think that comes down to, a lot of it comes down to the game, where there's been periods where no one's really interested in playing the game much at all. And realistically, our team doesn't particularly want to play too many scrims. We don't, and tournaments will take them as they come, but not too fussed either way. But yeah, I think we definitely have the potential, but whether we can unlock that is the real question.
Well, do you, when these sort of tournaments come around, and this one in particular, PCS2, the Oceanic Qualifiers, is the closest thing we've had to the ESL AUNZ champ since then, because there's going to be a lot more games played, a lot more nights. It's going to be like a proper 3 sort of week, lead into APAC. Is this something that just gets that fire burning a little bit more, because it is more structured and it is more sophisticated? There's more games to be played rather than just 3 days before the event, hey, here's 6-12 games or whatever, go and try and qual.
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's a better way to qualify, but I think it's sort of just all the same old now for us, honestly. We've been around that long that nothing really changes too much.
It doesn't ignite the fire.
No. I think my times of being hyped or anything for any sort of tournament, especially when there's no LANs attached, it's sort of all just the same level.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the ones that have the LANs, you definitely want to qualify for those LANs.
100%.
2019 really was just the perfect year, with the right amount of games played and the length of the seasons. We had the LAN. It's as good as it's ever going to get. I don't know if it'll ever get as good as that again, because that was a lot of money spent and it ties into the PUBG philosophy as to what they used to do with EU and NA, and for instance, obviously they've all kind of cut back a bit.
Yep.
Do you see anyone? And I know you're gonna probably put yourselves up there, but Astra Fury, they've got to be the two favorites, right? Or do you see a way through for other teams such as yourself and Carnage?
Fury, I think, are just obviously by far the best team in the region. I think Carnage and Astra are probably on the same level at the moment. I think Bay would have topped both of them if they played in OCE, but
So
they wouldn't have
replicated.
Well, you'd hope not. They've been a little bit inconsistent, but from a perspective of players, I think Bay's probably the strongest or second strongest roster.
If Bay qualify through their region, would you basically look at it as if like there's 3 OCE teams in APAC?
You can put it that way. Definitely, they're higher percentage OCE than they are. Hold on, is Sophia Malaysian? Oh well, they're 50-50 anyway. So you can say they're OCE. You can claim them, no worries.
I think maybe Sophia might be Singapore, and Loki's is Malaysian. I don't actually know, but they meet the 50-50 rule somehow. And it's the smart decision for them to do that. Even if, as you said, I would have put them maybe as the second best team. So I would have seen them and Fury being the very two likely candidates. And now I'm happy because I think that they should, barring something really going horribly wrong, they should probably qualify out of that one spot because the competition there is just dreadful. Yeah.
Yeah, that region, like that was why Icon came across to OC originally, was because the Singapore PUBG scene was abysmal. So, you know, that should be free qualifiers for them, and so far they've been farming their lobbies. So it's definitely looking really, really good for them.
But if you had to make a guess for OCE, would you say Carnage Fury?
I'd probably still say Astra Fury. I think
just on experience alone, and
I think literally on Lynxie alone, I think Lynxie's by far the best player for Astra. I'm not sure what Zoid's going to be like coming back into this.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? And it's no secret. Zoid's been playing fucking WoW now 24/7.
Yeah.
First it was RuneScape, then it was Tarkov. Zoid on Tarkov was actually pretty good. He came back and fragged out when he was playing Tarkov. Tarkov's a shooter, so I can see why. And now playing all this WoW, I don't know. Like, I'm obviously very good friends with those guys, but I'm very intrigued to see this one more than anything for Astra, because PCS 1, Zoid was playing more PUBG than he has been recently. So, and they had time to gel with Lynxie. It was like really good timing for them. But for this one, I'm curious, man. Like, I'm really, really curious to see how they perform. And do you get that sentiment from the rest of the region?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like, you look at it from our perspective, that it used to be, we never used to practice or scrim or anything like that, but we still were mechanically very good. So Zoid can come back and still be mechanically very good. He can still be a really good IGL, but there's always, you know, you can always just like lose a little bit of muscle memory over time, and it might not be as good as you once were. But
you got a team like Carnage as well, who's this young, hungry team that's playing and dominating these tournaments that they're playing in. Well, dominating, but they're up there with your Fury and whatnot. They may just be time for them to claim sort of back-to-back APAC spots. And then there's a team like yourself seeking redemption. Even if competitively you guys aren't the same as like Fury and Carnage in terms of that competitive drive, you've got a lot of talent and you've got that experience. And so if you have a good couple of days, you have a good couple of games, very easily you could see yourselves getting first or second.
Yeah, I think this qualifiers, if we qualify, will be the most top heavily stacked qualifiers. I think there's potentially like 4 or 5 teams that can sort of do it. There's going to be some teams that you know, if the PUBG gods are smiling on them, they can definitely do it. But you know, I think Fury's a given, but then the other one's just
Well, you
other
say
slots
that.
just going to be up in the air.
You say that, Edge, but we know PUBG. And as good as Fury has been, you know, going in. No, I'm serious, because going into the PCS one calls, while I wasn't like Bay's a given, definitely would have said Bay's a given to get top 8 or top 6 or top 5. Finish second last, for fuck's sake. Like,
yeah. But I mean, Fury's had a lot of experience of just farming OCE
for
lobbies.
sure, 100% without a doubt. But they could have a couple bad games
scared.
and drop to like 3rd.
Yeah, but it'll only literally take one game for them to sort of bring it back. I think with just like what they've been doing recently is just if they get one knock, they'll just full breach a team. So they go in with so much confidence in this region that I really don't think that there's much of a chance that they don't qualify. But
I will say, I'm
PUBG,
not.
so.
Yeah, I'm just advocating on the RNG factor. I obviously, well and truly, if I could bet on it, I'd probably say Fury make top 2 without a question. But you always, of course, have got to factor in the nature of this game. I'm not even going to make an attempt for second place predictions until I see the final 16 teams firstly, and then I'll make it on the broadcast, because right now I just don't know. It's, you know, it's been a little while since we've seen some of these teams. You know, Astra, what do they look like? Carnage, yourselves, you know, a few other teams that are going to be thereabouts. And as you said, I can easily see a case where there's going to be 4 or 5 teams and then it just drops. And it just drops right off. Which was a little bit similar actually to PCS 1 APAC, where the top 4 or 5 were, I think it was the top 4 from memory, were all like very, very close. And then there was a bit of a gap to what was a very congested leaderboard. How have you seen PCS so far for what's been a very intriguing year?
PCS as a whole?
Yeah, just the whole ecosystem behind it and everything about PUBG Continental Series, all online, and then the region split ups compared to last year's format, I guess.
I honestly think it's a big positive. I think it shows a lot of what PUBG can do and can be, but I don't think they've really, until now, sort of tapped into anything like this. I think it looks promising. Does it bring in new players and new spectators? I don't think so. But I don't know. PUBG's always in that hard place as a viewer and a competitor standpoint. It's just really weird to sort of get into. And I think,
don't know if PUBG's the problem with PUBG, I find, is that in the what is the landscape nowadays? The landscape is, if you're going to make a battle royale, it's going to be like go go go, fast fast fast.
Yeah.
Look at this Hyperscape shit that just came out, and it's an Apex Legends knockoff, which of course Apex Legends is all about go go go. Fortnite's very quick movement based. Of course, PUBG at its core is a military simulation, best as it tries to be, based off armor. And I just don't know if that's what the kids want these days. When it came out, it was more so the fact that it sort of introduced, because like H1Z1 never gained the popularity. So in essence, and PlayerUnknown himself was the one who introduced the genre, right? So it introduced the genre to the mass market, and that's why it just got so heavily popular. But nowadays, it's like everyone's like, no, it's too slow, too boring.
Yeah, and like for me personally, that's what drew me to PUBG, is that there's the whole, you know, you start off slow and you gradually build. Where I played Apex competitively, and it's just draining.
Right,
just constantly go. There's no slow moments. There's no tactical, like the tactics are sort of all taken out. And it's literally like playing Sanhok. The entire, like, PUBG put Sanhok into the game, which is basically a weird TDM sort of map, and it just doesn't work. I don't like it. I don't like not having the sort of the tactics behind it, and just being all about whoever gets the center wins 100% of the time, and just free farms and all that.
As a game and as a genre, you've got to commit to what is your identity, and PUBG, I think, has flirted with trying to introduce new things, gliders, BRDMs, C4s, all these new fun gadgets and gimmicks, and Carrigan, and as you said, Sanhok. When that was released, it was like this almost arena kind of thing rather than Erangel, which I think in my mind was always based off the original DayZ map.
Chernarus, yep.
Chernarus or whatever. Yeah, it always had that feel. I love.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah. Miramar, I've never been a big fan of. Fucking hate Miramar to this day. Still want to see that get remastered. But yeah, I think you brought up a good point, in that PCS doesn't necessarily aim at bringing in new viewers. And saying that, the viewerships have gone up, and I think adding OCE to the APAC region has been a success. As a region, just our at the Play Battlegrounds channel, we actually get more viewers than NA.
Okay.
And it even opens up more sponsorship potentially for OCE teams that maybe should look at going and getting like an SEA organization. Because really now the benefit is, you say to the SEA org, well, we're going to be playing in APAC. Like this is an APAC. All those Thailand streams that are getting like 70k views, all the Singapore and Indonesian streams, for instance, that you're going to be broadcasted on, are getting far more views. And one of the statistics I saw, basically the APAC region is actually the most viewed region. If you combine every single stream and all the country streams, APAC gets even more views than Asia.
Oh. Yeah. Wow.
Close. It's very close, but they're neck and neck. And then it's EU, and then NA's like down the bottom, like dead region, basically.
Yeah. I know the Southeast Asian region absolutely loves PUBG, but yeah, I didn't know it was that big.
I don't want to. You can put, I guess, an asterisk next to it as I say it, because I only saw the infographic for it. I think it was on the PUBG competitive subreddit. And whenever someone posts some of those infographics, it's like, hey, is that real? Is that 100%? Are they fudging numbers? I don't know. But the fact is, it's from what I've seen with my own eyes as well, is the amount of streams. Because when they list all of the streams that are up for PCS2, if you go on like the Wikipedia, it says these were all of the streams, and you go and actually look at them, it all adds up to hundreds of thousands of viewers. If you don't just look at Twitch. Twitch is nothing, especially for the APAC region. It's the bare minimum.
Yeah, majority of Southeast Asians stream on Facebook and YouTube, from my understanding.
Yep. So it's a very successful region, and so I am very happy to see OCE a part of it, and it was always the best thing that could happen for our region, and hopefully we start to see some Southeast Asian organizations pick some teams up. I mean, I could easily see Astra getting like a big SEA org, for instance, that can actually provide them some benefits if they want, like salary or whatnot, because they're constantly making things like APAC.
Yeah. I think as long as they get themselves a spot in this next PCS, they should definitely have offers, at least from Southeast Asian teams.
And the other thing as well is it also stops some of these SEO orgs from even being in a position where they might have sister teams or whatever. Or,
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's something I'd like to see happen. I'm not sure. And if it doesn't happen, as you said, like if Astra qualify and they don't get something like that, then I don't think obviously it'll happen maybe this year, but hopefully next year, which then of course is all a bit unknown right now, is the old 2021. Just looking back a little bit, one of the notes I got here, comparing the quality of teams now versus your time at Chiefs 2018. We'll keep it strictly FPP, but we'll say around the time of like the PGI LAN, for instance. How different is the quality of the teams that you face nowadays compared to 2 years ago?
I think it changes a lot. You have waves, especially when like older players and more experienced players retire. It brings in a lot of new blood, and it takes a little while for the newer players to sort of get back or to get onto the standard of the older players. But I think at the moment there's kind of a good pool of players playing. Whether it's as strong as or not, I'm not entirely sure. I think at this current state, there's a good amount of top teams, but then in OC there's always a drop off. So you've got your top teams, and then you've got everyone else underneath, and it sort of splits up like that, where there's no real middle point. It's top, and then it drops drastically.
So would you say that, which time would you prefer playing in, now or 2018?
Probably now would probably be easier. I think 2018 would probably be a little bit more difficult. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, considering you had success in 2018, and so far 2020 has been, well, quite miserable.
Yeah. Well, I think for that, it comes down to, I've been playing the game for what, 3-4 years now, or something like that. So kind of a little bit over it to an extent, where it's like a give or a take if I keep playing or not. But I don't know, I think 2018 would probably be more enjoyable if you have a lot more higher quality teams and you're constantly playing to improve and constantly grinding. Like, that's a better place to be in.
One thing that wasn't there in 2018 was Sanhok.
Yep.
Let alone the new version of Sanhok, which we touched on very briefly. But what's so horrible about even now the new version?
I mean, it's just a lot of little things. Like, one thing I want to say before that, PCS has been absolutely amazing without having Sanhok in it. I think Sanhok promotes a terrible play style, and it started from right at the beginning, where people just hot dropped and they went for fast action. And at the beginning of it, they loved it. You hot drop, you die, you get kills, you restart, blah blah blah. But now it's got to a point where it's sort of ruined every other map, where people, you get games where it drops down to like,
I mean, to be fair, even
players.
during the very beginning days of PUBG, school was always a hot drop location, right? Pachinki's always been a hot drop location.
Yeah, you'd lose a small chunk of players, but I think now it's just like exaggerated to a point where the game's just been slowed down.
Now it's like, if you're not dropping in those locations,
you're
missing out.
It's just taking it away. But I think as a whole, Sanhok, the things that I don't like about it is the small size, the terrain. I feel like even now on the newest Sanhok, it's very open with only trees for hard cover. Basically, if you're not getting zone, you're not doing anything because you're just dead. And I think that's like one of the biggest problems for Sanhok, for competitive, is just that it just doesn't play well. It's predictable.
Well, I'm bringing it up definitely now because it has been released completely with 8.1. In the past couple of podcasts I've done, it was in the the test and whatnot, and before that it was that we didn't know too much about it, so the speculations. And now that it's out and I've played it, I'm just not a fan. I'm really not a fan. It feels as if it was made for the casual experience. One of the AMA that they put out on the PUBG subreddit was a question I wanted to ask was this made with the competitive aspect in mind when they were recreating it? And someone asked it. I think it was actually another PUBG dev who asked it. I didn't actually end up reading the answer. But to me, from playing it, it doesn't feel like it. They can say what they would want to say, like, oh yeah, we looked at like competitive and whatnot when we were recreating, but it does not feel like it at all.
No, it seems like they've tried to make a spectacle. And I mean, they've done it. Like, the casual players apparently love it. From all the responses I've seen, they absolutely love the new grass, which is too bloody tall. they love the loot trucks, they love, you know, this, that, and the other. But just from playing it, I can't see how it would improve anything. I can only see how it would make things worse, especially in competitive. But yeah, I guess they've got a different sort of an outlook than the general competitive player does.
Well, this is still a company, of course, that has to keep in mind that literally still 50% of their player base plays on TPP.
Over 50%. I think it's like 80 something, isn't it?
No, well, from what I've been told around the PGC days of last, when I, was able to ask and speak to PUBG devs, it was about 50-50 split.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is like still high. It should be 100% split one way or the other. You just basically shouldn't have TPP, or you shouldn't have FPP. And then if you don't have FPP, okay, you've now made your game clear. We're going down the TPP route. Fuck off competitive. Everyone goes somewhere else. But now you've got yourself a game where, quite honestly, as a casual game, TPP, people will love it. You'll be able to do things and you'll be able to make things. And the same vice versa. If it's FPP only, you can do things and make things with FPP only in mind. And you don't have to worry about the casual game. Because I think the biggest issue for PUBG is just that fact. Like, they've got too many hands in too many pies. There are, we want TPP, we want casual, we want competitive, we want FPP, we want maps. We want to update these maps. We want lots of maps, but then we can't have too many map pools. You look at something like Valorant, just as an example, as a fresh game that's come out, and it's like, okay, we're doing this, and we're doing it this way.
Yep.
And it's just like, you go into that game knowing full well you're playing a first-person tactical shooter, and it's going to play pretty much like CS with a couple of abilities, and you know what you're getting. Straight up.
I mean,
we're not going to try and fudge it.
Yeah. I think, PUBG obviously shot themselves in the foot by releasing more game modes, more maps, blah, blah, blah. But if PUBG literally took the Fortnite route and had one map that they just changed every now and then,
I thought about that.
Probably be a lot more successful game at the moment. Like, people would still be getting constant games because there's only one map. There's only, like, you can have a couple of different game types, but you don't saturate the market with like just too many choices to be able to, for every player to be picking.
Well, I would say, instead of, since they basically can't go down that option because you've already got a whole bunch of maps that they've brought out, right? And the thing is, for them, they probably would have had no idea about even, I guarantee you, I reckon if Fortnite had have done that first, and then before PUBG made more maps, they would have been like, okay, that's how we're going to do it, because Apex followed that method. I'm sure pretty much every battle royale from here on out is going to look at the blueprint sent from PUBG and be set from PUBG and be like, don't do this. Don't go and make 5 maps. Just make one map and change it every now and then, and that's it. What PUBG can do to fix that, though, in my opinion, is just set the random map, FPP, and that's it. You have that one button. You go in, and it's like, you don't get to choose your map. And as bad as that is, because that means you got to play Sanhok, means you got to play Vikendi, which I'm sure you've got. I know you've got your your hatred for that as well. Karakin's in there too. But the idea is that you are limiting the amount of choices that someone can have in terms of a queue. There was like
100%.
There was something I saw on Twitter. I've brought this up in one of my other podcasts as well, and it's like the amount of queue options there are in PUBG is like 5 times as many as the likes of Apex and Fortnite. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's way too much. And like, you see other regions slowly dying as they're not able to get fast queues because they've got too many choices. Like, SEA doesn't pop on certain maps, but a lot of players want to play those other maps, so what do? They just quit the game. If you have random, you get a chance. Like, if you want to leave, you can leave the game, I guess. Just queue up for the next one, but at least other people are still getting the maps they want to play. Like, OCE before bots was fine. You could just random queue, you get a map, you play it, whatever. If you get a Sanhok and you don't want to play, you just hot drop and die and queue up for the next Erangel or Miramar.
There's too many bots in this bot variation. It's ridiculous. I think it's okay to fill up like the last 20 slots with bots. I don't mind that. I think that percentage is good, to the point where you probably won't even notice them. But playing the games that I've had, it's just bots galore. You might see
Yeah.
one other person.
Yeah. It does get like that, I think, and that's the problem with having casual and ranked, is that most players are now leaving casual and going to play ranked, and the casual sort of player base is just like so small that they need to fill the games with bots, and they want to give people fast games, so they don't even give people the option to wait for a little bit longer for more players.
Yeah. Well, this is all kind of tied in a little bit to what was going to be one of my final topics, which is what you wanted to see for 2021 moving forward for PUBG. Obviously, these are the issues. What are some of the solutions or your thoughts on what they can do besides something like obviously trying to have a revolving map?
I think for competitive, I think it's probably in the best interest to not bring back Sanhok. And especially not the new one. God. But what PUBG can do, or for 2021, I mean, if the whole Corona thing goes away and we can start having third-party events again, and PUBG starts spacing out their like global events, I think that'd obviously be the best, and that's what probably they're planning to have for 2020. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what PUBG or anything can really do to sort of improve it, because I think they've got their player base, and that's kind of the way it's going to stay. I don't think they bring in any new sort of players at all, really.
Well, do you think that maybe they should do something that Rainbow did and have an entire year of like Operation Fix shit? Because Rainbow was in a similar path as to where PUBG is now. The competitive scene was shit, no one was watching it. The game was kind of shit, no one was playing it. They said, fuck it, we're going to take an entire year, no updates, but we're going to fix this game, we're going to make it better. They did that, and then they started rolling out the updates, and everyone's like, shit's awesome. Everyone started playing it. Then the tournament started happening, and now it's starting to grow as an esport. Could you see a world where PUBG Corp say, for 2021, we're going to halt production on new maps and new items and new guns and everything, and we're just going to fix this fucking game? Maybe not to the point as an entire new engine, which is something I think they should be looking at. PUBG 2.0 should be what they be doing. That's what they should be doing right now, is PUBG 2.0. But getting it to something like PUBG 1.5 and fixing everything.
I think they've tried the whole fix PUBG thing before, but that didn't last too long. I think they've got way too many sort of players that they can't afford to lose to really make that decision. I think it'd be great for them to be able to do that and to like fix all the spaghetti code, but I just don't know how likely it would be for them to actually do it. Yeah, I'm not sure at all.
Oh, well, I mean, that's fair enough. And look, it's really up to them to be the ones to sort of try and turn around this sinking ship, because it feels like that. To me, it feels like a sinking ship that they're staying afloat. Like, it's not like fucking Titanic. It's going to go down in 2 hours. But it's more like that Italian cruise ship that took about 10 hours or something before it went down. Horrible analogies. But it feels like it's got maybe 2-3 years. And then by that point, I don't know how many people would be playing it.
I mean, PUBG's kind of this game that's just sort of holding on by the ride or dies, right? That don't have anything else that sort of ticks all their boxes, so they just stay with PUBG. Like, they don't want to move over to these fast-paced games.
But the thing is, every game that comes out is going to grab someone. People are going to go to Valorant.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
People are going to go to...
There'll be a handful of players that go off into the next thing, and then the next thing, and you slowly start seeing your player base drop down even more and more, and until it's at a point of like H1Z1 of no return.
But that's when you come out with PUBG 2.0 and you get them back. You get them all back. Everyone's like, hey, this is this, slow-paced military battle royale, and it's made for, the year 2022 rather than something like 2015.
Yeah,
it's probably when they started production, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, look, if they were doing all these fixes behind the scenes and making a cleaner PUBG without telling anyone, like that'd be the perfect way to do it. Is just like drop something that's maybe not even entirely new, but just works. You know, that'd be all people would be asking for.
Yeah, I hold out hope. But that doesn't go beyond 2021. I think 2021 things will be similar to 2020. I think it'll all be relatively online. I think it'll all be PCS style. And then 2022 onwards is obviously dependent on, of course, the coronavirus stuff, is when they'll either have to make some big steps to, as you say, get these global things up and running again. And who knows where PUBG is going to be at by then, and what competition could be out. It's all very much up in the air. In fact, it's even still for Phase 3 this year, still up in the air from what I know. Like, there's nothing that's been announced. There's a timeline thing. Like, there's something there, but no one knows what it is.
Well, have the dates even been announced for like APAC yet? Like, past the qualifiers for the actual event for PCS?
For PCS 2?
Yeah.
I don't know if they've been announced, but I've got them.
Yep. Okay.
I don't know if they've been announced.
Yeah, because I haven't seen dates or anything. I was talking to other people and they knew nothing either. So
yeah, I don't know about that one. That's strange if it hasn't been announced, because it really shouldn't be a secret.
Yeah.
But for PCS 3, if there is a PCS 3, like, this is the thing. Only PCS 1 and PCS 2 has sort of been announced. There is no PCS 3 technically. But,
okay.
I
Surely
don't know.
Something.
Well, I think from when it was all sort of made, they maybe thought coronavirus could be gone by then. Who knows? But that's obviously not going to be the case. They may just do another PCS 1 or PCS 2 sort of style tournament again and say, right, there you go. There's PCS 3. Because PUBG has shown in the past that the third event of the year is typically the bigger one. We're certainly not going to have a LAN, that's for sure, though.
What can you do online that sort of is bigger than what you've got? Like, it's kind of rough, especially if you're gonna have people on 300-400 ping trying to compete. It's not a good time. No,
certainly not. Well, I'd say we're about done here for time. Any shout outs and thank yous, Edge?
Shout outs to Bliss, obviously. To Rupee, is an absolute legend. Shout out to my boys, Champs, Xtol, Hef, the Grind Squad. Shout out to my team, and shout out to all the community. The OCE PUBG community is honestly probably the best community you can be involved in. Everyone's very friendly, and yeah, that's probably it.
I definitely agree with you there, mate. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. Also, thank you so much for getting the haircut and the shave.
Yeah, no worries, mate. I didn't want to look homeless for this.
I appreciate it. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me.